Good morning, one and all. Uh, we welcome again Charlie Day for another day of introduction to the Celts. Today, we're going to learn about their artistic achievements, so stay awake and kindly, but do put those cell phones to sleep right now. You can silence them if you expect a call from a doctor or a sick relative. Thing to do is silence them. Otherwise, just turn them all off or step on them. So here we have Charlie Day. I mean, not Charlie. We have David Cassie. Charlie, next week, Charlie. Well, everybody's beginning to look alike after 3 years. Uh, welcome, David Cassie.
All right. The lights. Okay, well, to summarize, I'm going to be redundant as we get through this as clarity emerges in the course of this presentation. Who were the Celts? The Celts were not a nation. They were not an empire. They were a loose but interwoven community of tribes. They shared a common language. There are variations, of course, as we do between English and American English. And they had a common artistic practice and a highly developed trading economy and a powerful, as we know, military tradition. And they were often tempted to seize other people's properties and land, but a lot of that was because of their population increased and they needed to have land, so they would migrate with their tribes and knock on a door and come in on and take over, I guess you could say. And they were the dominant culture of Europe, reaching all the way to Ankara, Turkey. Okay, and in this presentation, we will see this is evident by the wide distribution of their art geographically. We can find it all over Europe. Okay. All right. Now we're reliant on the artistic achievement because there's no writing. They didn't write. People wrote about them, and they may have used other languages to express themselves, but there was no written language because there were prejudice against putting anything in writing, particularly the religious or intellectual concepts they had. I guess if you don't have it in writing, then no one can challenge you. So those of you who don't want to be challenged, never write anything. Yeah. Okay. All right, let me get this to move here. All right. Now let me go back here. Okay. So we have an example, and I'm going to show this to demonstrate the longevity of the culture even before the Celts emerge. This is a cup from about early Bronze Age, and it's discovered in Switzerland. And you can see it's pretty beautiful, actually, made from a single sheet of gold with a distinctive shape, and it indicates advanced metallurgy that was present in Europe very, very early. I don't know what date we can, probably 5,000 years ago or more. And so the Celts, who were very skilled at this, they didn't invent metallurgy. They inherited it, okay? And therefore, they were the beneficiaries of what went before, as we all are. But here's another example, discovered in an English field. It's about 3,500 years old, but is gold cups go, it's a newbie. It's not the oldest by any means. Um, and we have much earlier examples. So the Celts inherited an advanced metallurgical practice, um, and they subsequently refined it, as we will see, to a great extent. Um, I show this because it's old, uh, and it demonstrates the influence of chariots on that culture, which they inherited from the East. And it also indicates advanced metallurgy. That may look like a primitive thing, but it's pretty challenging to put that together. Uh, try that in your backyard, even though it's that old. Yeah, and, it's a little thing. It's an art object. Yeah, it's not. You couldn't get on it and ride along. Uh, um, but it early on, the Celts had mastered and inherited uh, the the use of chariots in military warfare. And when they first encountered the Romans were overwhelmed. Hard to believe that, but it's true. Uh, okay. Now here is an abstract uh, Celtic presentation of. Well, what do you think that is? Yeah, it's a horse. It's almost surreal. Is that the right word? I, Now, those of you who are steeped in art, what would you call that? How would you describe that? Contemporary? Modern? It's rather beautiful, right? But it's reduced to its simplicities. Uh, I think it's an extraordinary. You recognize it, but on the other hand, uh, it could be almost anything, right? But you recognize it as a horse, and the horse motif you'll find throughout the art of this period, um, um, because the horse was the critical factor in the Celtic advance and the chariot as well. Um, Now, some of these, we teased you last week with some of these. I'm going to repeat them because they're rather important. This is a piece from quite late, the so-called La Tene period, the highest achievement artistically of the Celts during this period. It's quite late. Um, and you'll notice that around his neck, he's got something called a torque. And that person, you can see a picture of a Celt that's 1,000 years older, and they have a torque. Okay, and then the mustache, characteristic mustache, to strain the food as you're eating, and so that's it's abstract, but you recognize it as Celtic, and this is quite late. It was found in a hilltop fortress. Could have been a large town. Could have been 10,000 people or more, called an oppidum, and excavated in 43. Excavations continue apace. Um, and this we showed last time also. This is um, a I don't know, it's a reproduction of a Celtic warrior who's dying. And around his neck, he's got the torque, right? And he's naked because a lot of them, would go into battle naked. And when Romans first encountered all these naked, shrieking, uh, scary people, they were overcome with fright um, until their commanders set them straight. And okay, um, so it's the Greeks are the ones who are responsible for first describing the Celts in writing. And I use the word Celtic with a K because the Greek word is Keltoi. And I just figured we should go back to the Greeks. And I don't know where the C came from. I have no idea. Those of you who are familiar with development of language, I don't know where that came from. Um, but the Celtics invaded Greece and took over the sanctuary at Delphi to get the gold in it in 279. and the Greeks didn't like that at all. So they considered them barbarians. Well, they were, I guess, your enemy is a barbarian, and you're advanced. So that's how that goes always. Um, oh yes, BC. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Um, here it. Okay. So just to show you that we're not just spinning wheels here, this was annotated. These are various historians. Pausanias, 2nd century, that's late, but he had a vivid account of the attack on Delphi using earlier materials hundreds of years before. And there was another historian, Seculus, um, who provides a lot of historical background in his research. And they referred the Celts as Keltoi or Galatai, where we get the word Galatians in the New Testament. Okay. Here's an example of a torque. I'm going to give you some examples. Look at the workmanship, because it's been battered by the years, but these torques were originally designed to protect the neck from the thrusts of swords, but they became a kind of a talisman, a protective device to keep you alive in battle. And then they became an adornment. I guess that's true a lot of jewelry. It starts out as one thing and ends up being another. This is, I don't have the date on. Yeah, this is 550 BC, excavated at Hallstatt. I showed this too. This is from a German, well, in the Germanic area, but it was Celtic. It was excavated, and it comes from 530 BC. And, you know, totally superfluous. Now, when people are wearing superfluous stuff, they got to be rich, right? Poor people don't wear superfluous stuff, right? Unless they're imitating rich people. So here we have this utterly beautiful adornment on your shoes, indicating a high degree of affluence, and also tapped into trade at a wide, all the way from the Mediterranean into Middle Europe. 530. That's in a museum somewhere. Yeah. And here we have an example from 420 BC. This is motifs that have been borrowed by the Celts, I guess. But that's beautiful work any way you look at it, right? All that scroll, and we'll get into the scrolling. There is something here. Let's see. That little motif there, you will see this reproduced continuously for probably 5,000 years. I'm not exaggerating. And where it came from, well, we'll find out if we know. We probably don't know where it came from. Okay. Now, this is not gold, but it's terribly important because it was found in a grave in France it's 500 before the Common Era, in a woman, a female leader of a tribe. Don't ask me how they know this. I don't know. And it weighs 44 pounds, and it's a very beautiful vase. I don't know if it was for drinking or flowers or what it was for, but it indicates extreme wealth and a lively trade with the Mediterranean area in this era. It's very heavy, 44 pounds. Here's one of the most extraordinary pieces of artistic Celtic work you're going to find. And it was found in France, dated about 350, found in a cave in 1981. And it's considered a masterpiece of Celtic art. And It was used for display, obviously, not for battle, but that form is a common one for battle. That thing hanging down protect your cheeks there, um, and it's an iron. The helmet consists of an iron cap completely covered with bands of bronze, and then covered with a pure gold leaf, um, with embedded coral decorations attached using silver rivets. Um, yeah, and this is a late period, like the Latene period, anytime between 200 and 150 before the Common Era. Um, the gold leaf is extremely pure, um, and it was found further west than most other examples of this art, showing a wide diffusion of trade and commerce. Uh, but that's a spectacular piece. I don't know where that's in. That's in a museum, probably in France somewhere right now. I'm not sure. And this will show you. Go back here. If you look at the bottom part, this will show you the close-up of the workmanship in that helmet. And up here, you notice these tri these three shapes. Triskeles. Does anyone know how to pronounce that? Huh? Treskel. Thank you very much. Treskel. This is so ancient. This formulation. This no beginning, no end. Total everything connected, everything circulating. A very Celtic concept. Okay, and that goes back. Well, we'll see. Very early. Whether the Celtics invented that or inherited it, it's hard to say, but it's characteristic of Celtic art. And we'll see that in the book, even the book of Kells, 800, and the Common Era. Okay. Now we're going to come to one of the most spectacular of all art objects, not because of its intrinsic value in metal, but of what it displays, what it shows about Celtic culture. It was dated, as we'll see, about 2000. It's the largest known example of European ironwork or silverwork. It's now it was discovered in Denmark somewhere in I'm not Pittsburgh or I don't know where it was, and we saw this last week. But this shows continuity. This god, his name Canunos, ancient Celtic god of the underworld. He's in what position is that? Yeah, where does that go back? Yeah, they think there's connections here with India. He's got the torque in his right hand, right? And the snake. You have a stag on the left there. I mean, it's rather extraordinary work, would you say? And he's got the horns of those horns take various forms, but are characteristic of the helmets. And we'll see an example next week of 20th century use of that motif. This was found in a bog, as I said. And we're going to look through a number of pictures here up close. Beautiful renderings of figures, right? I don't know if these are Celtic figures or Asiatic figures. This is a very eclectic, culturally eclectic art form. Lighting is to highlight this. Of course, you have warfare as a big motif. This guy on the left, he's holding someone upside down. That was that. It's pretty cruel. And well, you have the soldiers wearing their defensive mechanisms, and then at the far right, at the bottom, guys are blowing horns. That's very important in Celtic warfare. They had these horns that made these outrageously loud sounds, and that would go into battle, blowing them all over the place. So with the horns blowing and the chariots going and the javelins being thrust, it was a very scary time to deal with Celts until the Romans figured out how to deal with them. And here's another lit up example. And see, this work is inside and outside of this cauldron. I mean, they didn't leave any space unattended by art or representation. Again, lit up to dramatize the exquisite quality of the motifs. Now, we showed this also last time. This is important because it indicates that the tribes were civilized enough to have their own coinage. So this comes from the tribe named the Parisi, and they are the founders of Paris. They're Celtic or French, and so they had. I said they were not a nation or an empire, but some of their towns became large enough to qualify as a kind of a more advanced society than just nomadic peoples. Now this is a belt buckle from a soldier, and it's rather intricate, and I guess we got some evidence here of this motif somewhat. Everything connected, everything, no beginning or end, as it were. But it's not really a three-pronged, but it has that quality. And this was put together on a soldier's uniform. I don't know if it represented what it represented, I don't know, but it's Spanish, showing the Celts down as far as the Mediterranean. And here we come to this Triskel, yeah, this ancient symbol, sign, merely decorative. What do you think? But it's one of the oldest symbols of human spirituality. It comes from the Greek word for three legs, and it goes back to Neolithic times. Yes, there is, yeah, exactly. Thank you. You should be up here talking. Yes, this was found in Ireland at the entrance of a famous ancient site called Newgrange, a tomb in the Boyne Valley. It's of Celtic origin, or is it? Does it predate the Celts, or is it contiguous and synonymous with their culture, their intuitions about things? So they think 5,000 years. It's really quite amazing, actually. Here's a more refined example, ecclesiastical, and then one on a hillside there somewhere, I don't know where that is. Whether that's a painting or a representation, I'm not sure. But does life have no beginning or ending? Is everything connected? Even the most disparate things, are they related? We're going back to the lecture last week about things impregnated in the psyche of the human species. Who knows? Okay, but the Celts had this sense of things being connected and being without beginning or end. Here's you find this in a lot of churches, right? And you know, it may be an adornment for some. What's an adornment for some is a profound symbol of their belief. People wear crosses as a kind of a cosmetic adornment. Well, that's, is that what it is? No. Uh, you know. And look at this piece, 6th century. This is late, of course. Look at the, say it again. Tricycle, yeah. This is a piece of jewelry, I guess, a brooch from Ireland. So this motif persists over thousands of years. I find it amazing. I don't understand it, but I find it amazing. And here's a torque from Spain, and this triplicate concept leads us into Celtic understanding of the Trinity, which we'll get into if we can understand it ourselves. But this is. Well, I guess once it was on, you leave it on. I don't know. It covers your dirty neck. I don't know. It had a clip. They come in all kinds of configurations. Yeah. It wouldn't be too comfortable unless you're used to it. You get used to things, right, that begin as uncomfortable. Yeah. Now, I put this in here because it's playful. It's a unicycle. I don't know where it's Celtic, but I don't know where it came from. I couldn't identify it, but it's rather playful, and the guy's happy, and it shows the wheel, the mastery of the wheel. That sounds simple to look at, but to get that baby to work, it took thousands of years of experimentation and usage. How we're going to jump, we're jumping from the beginnings to the 8th century in our common era. And here's from a beautiful manuscript called the Lindisfarne Gospels, depicting Latin for the generations that are listed in the Gospel of Matthew. And again, this is not purely Celtic. It's also has some elements of Anglo-Saxon and what is called Hiberno-Saxon or insular art. But you still have the connections, the interrelatedness of things there. Anyone else want to who know about these things? Want to describe that? And then we have, of course, the famous book of Kelts, the Gospel of John, decorated text. And I know a number of you have been there, right, to see that. But all this complexity, all this interrelatedness, all this sense of the whole. Is that an intuition? Is that science? Does poetry come there before? Does poetry arise before science explains? Some say the poet discovers, the scientist tells you. Well, I don't know if that's true. And then here's another example of the Book of Kelts. Now this rendering goes back, to Eastern Orthodox art, and you'll notice that the Christ figure holding the Book of Life, his feet are on a little platform there, and that's an inheritor from the East because he's not on the earth, as it were, right? He's somewhat else. He's still with us, as it were. He's still there, but not on the earth, kind of above it, and not floating, but not on the earth. And that Christ figure will finally emerge in Asiatic art, Christian art, at just the head of Christ. And on the left, you get the Virgin Mary. Is that the Virgin Mary? And uh, demonstrated there. But this goes, if you want to check out the heavenly throne, it's described in the first book of Enoch, and then Daniel, the 7th chapter, and the Apocalypse of John. A long tradition. So the Celts picked this up. They're Christian, of course, by this time.
David, if you know, what is the painted medium of the Book of Kells? What form of paint or coloration was used?
I have no idea. They use whatever produced color. You know, it's if you've seen it, it's striking. You know,
Oh, yes.
and it maintains its color. It's one of the extraordinary achievements of the human artistic capacity. Yeah, if I may put it that way. Okay. So anyway, there we go. Now, the chariot. This is a really big deal. Okay, and it's the first wheeled vehicle designed entirely for speed. Okay, and we find it in the graves of in southern Russia, southern Ural steppes around 2100 before the Common Era, even earlier. It was difficult to produce a chariot. You may not think about it, but it required a great level of capacity of carpentry, wood joinery. It would require a specialized team of fast, strong horses, highly trained. You had to drive through a turn and rein in each horse separately and keep going with your javelin being thrown while the thing is bouncing along. It's nothing the average person could ever imagine accomplishing. Years of training, and the inheritance goes back thousands of years. The Celts did not invent chariots. They inherited chariots from where? From the steppes of Asia. So our language is connected to that incursion, and all European languages seem to share in the influence of the Indo-European migration of folks from Asia into Europe. It took thousands of years, and we are still the recipients of that ancient language. We'll find examples later on of words that are common across all the boundaries of language for thousands of years. Okay. This is described later on. Next week we'll show how Caesar described this use of the chariot. He was very impressed, and of course the Romans took it over and perfected it as a warfare. But the Celts are the ones who invented it, I guess. And okay. There's some some claims that they went into battle painted. What do you mean? Oh, blue. Oh, I do not know the name. The woad, is that what it's called? Woad.
What is the question?
Is that because the blue is available to plant or something? The color blue.
I would assume so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was asking about the use of woad, WOAD, which is they painted themselves blue when they went into battle.
And you notice the tartan pants. That's pretty accurate. The Celts scandalized the Romans because they wore pants. And they came to battle. Those who were not naked wore pants. I guess there are different classes depending on your capacity for what should we say, chagrin. Some came in naked, some wore pants, and some were painted. I guess very theatrical, designed to intimidate, right? Warfare is mostly intimidation before it becomes killing. Then it becomes something else. Okay. Um, okay. So, all right. Well, those are my slides. Now you can ask me questions, and I'll maybe answer them, or maybe I won't. Yeah.
Just a minute, please. Nora?
Those look like conical dwellings in the background. Would that be the roof would be something that would deteriorate over time? And is the bottom part, the circular part, what we see in that you showed us earlier, that with just short walls?
I think that's the roof of a thatched cottage. A very primitive type of roofing material. Yeah. The Celts had villages, and they had houses, and they had barns, and they had pastures. They did settle. They weren't all on the move, but the populations grew. Maybe because they're very good nutrition. I don't know. The population grew and grew and grew, and finally they had to migrate, and they picked up thousands of people picked up and took over someone else's land. Yeah.
Dave, these are two big questions.
No big questions.
No big questions. The Trinity, for one. But I was thinking about the evolution of language. You said that there was no written language, but obviously at some point they, through contact with Rome, through other civilizations, began. The Book of Kelts. So, what is the evolution of that in terms of writing language?
Yeah, did they reduce their thoughts to written form?
Right.
Well, they used the languages of other people.
Right.
So they would write, their learned people would write in Latin or Etruscan, very early language, or something called Laponic, which is found, many citations are found in the northern part of Italy. The Celts came down from the Po Valley and took over the northern part of Italy, and therefore began affecting the Romans. And in that process, they put some things in writing. But I don't think they were religious writings. I don't know what kind. They made poetry. I'm not sure. But there is something called Laponic. It's no longer extant. It's a Celtic reproduction of Celtic speech. I don't know much about it.
Right. And just one more thing. This is a big, big question. I wonder if there's been work done on the ecumenical councils of the Christian Church came up with this very complex idea of the Holy Trinity, and yet you see it iconographically throughout this period. I'm sure this was in their psyches, right? People were used to seeing these devices. That's a big question, but it is an intriguing one. I think you even see some of that in Hindu art. The image that was there and that gets codified in some sort of triune image. So,
well, but what was the question? How did that?
I'm wondering if there has been work on that, whether Nancy or other people know. In other words, the effect of art when you're looking at Trinitarian, because we ended up with these very geometric descriptions of the Trinity. So,
well, how do you describe graphically the ineffable? You could do it with a shape, a form that represents a concept of three, but not disconnected. So that's a perfect example of that triskill. Perfect example of the triskill as a way to take the ineffable and give it some graphic. But it's art is always the attempt to express what can't be expressed with words.
Well, various cultures would find certain numbers lucky. The Indians went with 9 a lot, and they would divide 3 threes into 9. And I think a lot of cultures considered 3 a lucky number. And as far as language flow, the language came first, and then the writing came second. So they usually adopted whatever alphabet was in the local area
Right.
to write Indo-European words in. But I'm just wondering about that Book of Celts. Was that written in Latin words? And what was the date? When did they start writing something as big as their Book of Celts? Did it have forerunners before they wrote it all in one book?
Well, the monasteries did a lot of manuscript creation. This happened to be the acme of that work was going on to preserve scripture.
When was that?
700 to 800, Book of Kelts. Yeah.
And it was very sophisticated by that time.
Very sophisticated. You're in a cloister and you have time and you have, and time and creativity go together. It takes time to be creative. And you can see that over a period of time, they developed tremendous capacity to represent scripture. It's in Latin, by the way. And it's more complicated than that, the Book of Kelts. It's more, not just the Bible. Yes.
I'm just so fascinated with the languages, and you think of Europe and all the non-Latin Romance languages that are all in the fringes of Europe, going from, were the Etruscans Celts?
No.
No, okay. But Provençal, and then, I don't know about Portuguese, but certainly Galicia in the north of Spain, then up into Brittany and then, into the British Isles, which, it sounds like they got pushed out by the Romans finally. And
No, they didn't get pushed out. They were there long before the newest wrinkle is that the Celts were in the British Isles for 5,000 years.
right, yeah, but then, the Romans came into Britain.
Oh yeah, the Romans came there because of the tin mines. Rome had the British Isles had the most famous tin mines, and you need tin to produce iron, right? Bronze, which is a precursor of iron. You need tin as a additive or a component of the mineralogical process. I don't know anything about it, but the British Isles were all the heavy source of that. So trading began very early. But the latest concept by British archaeologists is that the Celts were there for 5,000 years in the British Isles.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. And then the Gaul became France.
Gaul became France.
When the Franks came over.
Right.
From,
well, before the Franks.
Really? Well, but isn't France that?
Well, the Gaul is France and Belgium and other Luxembourg, a lot of places that were Gaul at that time before they differentiated.
That Gaul is Celtic.
Gaul is Celtic.
Yeah, right.
The French are very
the name
proud.
France.
Yeah.
They call themselves les Gaulois. Every French child is supposed to learn about nos ancêtres les Gaulois.
And Gaulois
is Gallic Gaul.
Gal.
And the Gallic Charles de Gaulle and all that. So in a different era.
Well, we'll get into that next week because this new Celtic wave in the 19th and 20th century is an alternative to the nation state So you have groupings in Europe that don't want to claim to be French or Belgian or whatever. They were Celtic before there was a nation. They're even better. They're older and better. And why is older better? Don't ask me. It could be worse, but it's claimed to be better. So the Celtic revival is a reaction against the nation state. This is what the theoreticians tell us, and I think it makes a lot of sense. We have that in our own country. You have this division. We're better than they were before. Why are we better? Because we are. Yeah. The question, yes.
This is small, so don't be scared. Okay.
I'm
Um,
scared about
but
small.
especially because it's coming from someone who doesn't really know. But I'm going to guess something. You made mention of the fact of C and K, and why you write with C for a lot. And I can tell you, and I think a lot of us know this, that a lot of these languages don't have a K. So Italian doesn't have a K. Spain doesn't have a K. The Ks are mostly northern and eastern. So I have a feeling that when it got spread a little further, that we slipped into the C's, and the Romans became dominant. So my guess is because K in Italian is CH,
Right.
and it's similar.
You're
And
probably right
so
on.
maybe
Yeah.
that's my little bit.
No, it makes sense. But we're going back to the Greeks. The Greeks have a K. Keltoi. Yeah. As in. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yes.
I have a question about the names of the tribes. I think you showed this in a slide last week, but there was the Iceni, which ended with two I's, and then there were some other names of tribes that started that sort of struck me as being Latin. Is that Latin? I never had Latin, so I don't know.
Well, a lot of these names are transliteration. So who knows what they were originally? Yeah. And the tribes had their own names, and so we have to ask them how they did it. Yeah. But there were many tribes with many names. I showed a map of Spain, and there were a plethora of tribal segments of the Celtic civilization in Spain. Well, it's needs are one thing and wants are another. Okay, so you need something, you go get it, right? We need oil, right? We need certain minerals to make our computers, right? So if you don't have it, then you got to either trade for it or you take over a place. You assume Greenland has minerals, so you take them over. It's an old trick, yes. Sure. The Indian tribe, the indigenous in the New World fought each other. Yeah.
There is a famous tale, and I think it's called The Cattle Raid of Cooley. It comes out of Ireland, and it's two tribes warring against each other. And the hero of this story is someone named Cuchulainn, who that's the name it means hound. And he was somebody's protector. So he was kind of like the dog that sits on the stoop and watches for raiders, and then he'll bark and alert everybody. But anyway, the whole thing was involving stealing cattle. Like what you were talking about, somebody has something that the other guy wants.
Well, we'll mildly get into this subject of who were the Celts in Ireland and how do we know they were there? And we have to look at Celtic literature. And the complexity is you have to extract from Celtic literature details you cannot prove from history. So literature becomes very important conveyor, but it's not an absolute determinative. It's a lot of extrapolation. But we'll find some evidence in Irish stories which proves the Celtic tradition in Ireland. Yes.
David, I learned something today that the Celts were sort of all over Europe, all the way down to Greece and to the Mediterranean.
Yes.
I knew this about the Vikings, who also traveled all the way from Scandinavia down to the Mediterranean. So there's a lot of blood intermixed. So I think all of us who come from Europe have probably a little Celt blood and a little Viking blood and a nice mixture.
Well, if I understand it, the diffusion of Viking culture is minuscule compared to Celtic covering of Europe. Yeah, and we'll get into this. The question is Great Britain predominantly Anglo-Saxon? That's German, Viking, or Celtic?
All of the above.
And this will be an amazing discovery, which I'll go into next week, about what is the genetic substratum of the British Isles. Can we prove it?
I can answer some of that in my own DNA because I had it tested. And yeah, I am 39% Irish, 30-some% Scots, and some other mixture of Northern European, but there's Scandinavian in there.
Yeah, well, there were
5% Scandinavians, Nordic. So
there was a lot of sleeping around, obviously.
For an answer to some of these questions, you could turn to two sources. One is Tacitus's Germanic Wars, which is not a very long book, and it's really beautifully written. It covers that period when Marcus Aurelius was fighting off all those tribes. Another interesting source, really entertaining, is the Netflix series Barbarians, which the producers made bold to create in the original languages. They researched, and the tribal people, the barbarians, so-called, speak in German that their sources told them that was current at that time, and the Romans speak completely in Latin. So if you know Latin, if you're Latin from Manhattan, you can tune into the Barbarians. It's a very entertaining series with a lot of horseplay and a lot of bloodletting, but the Latin is very clear. So both sources are recommended.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I think it's important to keep in mind that most of the sources that we have that are literary sources come from the written languages like Latin and Greek. And so a lot of what you get, like the pre-reading, is a reading back out of that into an oral tradition that we don't really know. So you have transliterations, as you put, and all kinds of different wordings and endings and sounds. And those of us who come from a literate world, the process of trying to work backward is really complicated and kind of controversial. Like, how much can you actually take out of? And that's why archaeology is so important, because that provides a kind of source, but it's not a word source. And that's what you're dealing with, I think.
Right, right. And the archaeology is problematic because sometimes you find stuff in the tombs that you think is indigenous to the place, and it could have been traded from 1,000 miles away. So it gets very complicated, but that's why people earn their keep, making that clear to us. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for your patience.
Thank you, one and all. Thank you, David. Very good job.
Next week, we will deal with the story of the Druids. Who were they, and where did they come from, and what is their enduring influence on us today, if any? All right.